Right now, our next guest has many credentials, but is also very humble. Mr. Myers calls him the most knowledgeable authority on firearm ballistics, usage, tactics, and legalities on Earth. And Don asks, if not he, who is? For years, he's done regular personal defense segments on national TV, authored several books, and over 1,000 articles in various firearm magazines. He's the director of the Law Enforcement Institute in Concord, New Hampshire. He's a captain in the Grantham, New Hampshire Police Department. I hope I got that right. And he's been in many courtrooms testifying as a police officer. And the credentials go on and on. Our special guest, Mr. Massad Ayoob. And I hope I have that correct, Mr. Ayoob. Is that right?
Yeah, you got the name right. The school is Lethal Force Institute. And since you mentioned the department, I have to say that I am speaking just for myself and not on behalf of the agency tonight.
Right. And all the officers that come on with us, in fact, some of them have to get the old clearance from the bosses. But we really appreciate you taking the time and joining Call the Cops.
Well, it's my pleasure.
And taking the time. Firearm ballistics. I'm a novice when it comes to firearms. In fact, I have never owned a gun in my life. But, with all the new shows like, CSI and NCIS and all that stuff, are the ballistics, how do you become, first of all, an authority, and are they changing?
Well, a lot of things are changing. We're seeing legislation in several states that would require so-called ballistic fingerprinting. That would be a mark on the base of a cartridge. Might take the form of taggants, that is, identifiable particles in gunpowder, etc. Also, they want, some of the legislation wants firearms that will actually leave a distinct code when the firing pin strikes the primer of a cartridge. And it's kind of like an amateur scriptwriter for CSI went nuts and sat down with a legislative aide. On the lead base of a bullet at high pressure, let's say a 9mm cartridge at 33,000 pounds per square inch pressure, it's quite likely that identifying marks would be burned off by gas before the bullet left the end of the barrel. There would be any number of ways that a criminal could alter those signatures simply by pulling the bullet, filing off the bottom of the projectile, and reinserting it in the cartridge case, or a few swipes of a file over the firing pin. Yet the cost to the industry would make ordinary firearms and ammunition prohibitive to ordinary hunters, shooters, and family people who wanted to protect their families. And losing that market would mean that the firearms industry, if it could serve only police, would have to charge so much for the police guns that the police would be unable to afford them, or there would be an exorbitant bill passed on to the taxpayers. It's like some of these people do not literally see past the end of their nose.
Wow.
Besides, this initiative, if you will, has also been compared to possibly the government trying to take more control over people who keep ammo in their home, whether for home protection, whether for practice or whatever, to the point where there's been some speculation that ammo would be confiscated if it wasn't properly marked or whatever.
Well, it's not just speculation. If you look at the legislation, there are actually provisions that by the year, let's say if we passed it now, by the year 2010, would have to be confiscated. And again, we've got to ask, did anybody think beyond the end of their nose? We're talking, a few boxes of ammunition that you'll find in the typical home weigh a few pounds. They are no sort of a hazard or anything. The lead is perfectly well contained in the projectiles and the packaging. You now decide you're going to take several boxes of ammo, maybe even from the target shooter's cases of ammunition, from 100 million people. Who is going to pick them all up? Where are they going to store them? That much lead and gunpowder now creates a serious hazmat problem, a serious hazmat materials problem. Where are you going to dispose of those millions of tons of lead?
Mm-hmm.
It's as if, little kids in grammar school were given a civics project and asked, how can we control ammunition? And could not think ahead into the real world.
It almost sounds like a bureaucracy that mirrors TSA and how that's gotten out of control with just endless spending, you know. Who's paying for it in the long run?
I'm not involved with TSA, and actually as a frequent flyer who travels with guns, I've had pretty good luck with TSA. But I can tell you some of the new legislation that we're seeing on the national level. It is literally childish. It's literally at a fantasy level. They're asking for things that physically cannot be accomplished, and they're not looking at the huge unintended consequences that would evolve if such legislation became law.
Massad, we were talking during the break right before you came on about open carry, and I believe there's 4 different categories that open carry dictates, or the different constitutions in different states. What are those 4 different ways that open carry can be regulated in each state?
Well, I'm not familiar with the 4-tier level that you're mentioning. I know there are a number of states, in fact, possibly a majority, where it's legal for a private citizen to carry a handgun on the hip exposed as they go about their normal business. However, culturally, over, really through the 20th century and into the 21st, it has not become a normal custom and practice anywhere. And there are a lot of folks who are pushing for it, who think it would be a good idea to acclimatize the general voting public to the fact that, hey, it's okay for you to own these guns, it's okay for you to carry these in public, and it's sort of like making a political public statement. And there's one side that says this is a good thing, there's another side that argues, that says, look, all the average public citizen is going to see is somebody with a gun that they can't identify as a good guy. It's going to scare them, and it will hurt the cause of gun owners' civil rights more than it will help.
And there's some credence to that, because a man with that is carrying openly hasn't necessarily been screened for. He's not necessarily been screened for being a felon, or we don't know if he can handle a firearm correctly. So at least concealed carry people have some sort. You know something about them.
Well, the concealed carry person, first, by definition, concealed is concealed. And no one is alarmed by it because properly concealed, no one sees the gun. If I can touch on another debate that's outside my field, it's kind of don't ask, don't tell. With the openly carried gun, in our society, people are conditioned to seeing them on the hips of uniformed police, uniformed security. And when they see it on the hip of someone who's unidentifiable, they do not know are they good guys or bad guys. Certain elements of the media have characterized anyone who carries a gun without a badge as a bad guy. And people who've fallen victim to that sort of propaganda are going to be frightened.